Hi, folks. Thanks for watching my monologue. As America starts to reopen, just remember that guns, etc., never closed. They still have over 10,200 square feet of ammo, firearms, and accessories, including safes, and they remain open for business. Stop by their huge store in Mesa or just click on gunsetcetera.com. And if you like my monologues, please subscribe to 960 The Patriots YouTube channel. Thanks. Welcome back and happy June 29th. In our ongoing detailing of a failing index of cultural indicators, who knew that Fox Corporation had a channel exclusively aimed at African Americans, Black Americans? I just learned of it. Did you know of it? How did I learn? Well, I saw an ad that they're playing a sermon by Louis Farrakhan on the 4th of July on Fox Soul channel. I kid you not. I was gobsmacked. I'm not even sure CBS would play Farrakhan. But Fox Soul, you bet they are. There are so many problems here I don't even know where to begin. Perhaps with Fox Soul itself. I went to its homepage, and what did I find? The motto, quote, "Our voice, our truth," close quote. The description of the channel by Fox itself, quote, "A new live streaming channel dedicated to the black viewer," close quote. Where to begin? Let's maybe start with the idea that Oprah Winfrey has now evidently taken over Fox. Our truth? Plural possessive of my truth? You cannot modify truth. There is truth or there is anecdote. The concept is as old as the Bible, as old as Aristotle and Plato, as old as the Declaration of Independence, as old as Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, can we be serious? Is it David Duke's truth, as it was Nathan Bedford Forrest's truth that blacks are not equal to other human beings? It is the truth that blacks are, as all humans are equal to one another. Does David Duke get a pass because he's just speaking of his truth? My truth? Our truth? These are just preferences. But 2 + 2 is 4, no matter what others may think, including O'Brien, who tries to convince Winston in the novel 1984 that to be a free member of his party, the party, he has to say that 2 + 2 = 5. But you know, and I know, and O'Brien knows, as Winston knows, that is only the party's truth. It's not the truth. I immediately think of Martin Luther King Jr., who loved the phrase, "We hold these truths to be self-evident." What was that first self-evident truth in the Declaration of Independence? That all men are created equal. Oh, this was a huge theme of Martin Luther King Jr.'s. In his oft-preached sermon titled "A Knock at Midnight," he said, and I quote directly, quote, "It is midnight within the psychological order. Everywhere, paralyzing fears harrow people by day and haunt them by night. Deep clouds of anxiety and depression are suspended in our mental skies. More people are emotionally disturbed today than at any other time in human history. The psychopathic wards of our hospitals are crowded. The most popular psychologists today are the psychoanalysts." He went on, quote, "Bestsellers in psychology are books such as Man Against Himself, The Neurotic Personality of Our Times, and Modern Man in Search of a Soul. Bestsellers in religion are such books as Peace of Mind and Peace of Soul. The popular clergyman preaches soothing sermons on how to be happy and how to relax. Some have been tempted to revise Jesus' command to read, 'Go ye into all the world, keep your blood pressure down, and lo, I will make you a well-adjusted personality.'" Close quote. All of this is indicative, he said, that it is, quote, "midnight within the inner lives of men and women." He would conclude the thought by saying, quote, "It is also midnight within the moral order. At midnight, colors lose their distinctiveness and become a sullen shade of gray. Moral principles have lost their distinctiveness, and for modern man, absolute right and absolute wrong are just a matter of what the majority is doing. Right and wrong are relative to likes and dislikes and the customs of a particular community. We have unconsciously applied Einstein's theory of relativity, which properly describes the physical universe, to the moral and ethical realm. Close quote. So much for my truth and civil rights. Civil rights are based on a truth, one truth, the truth. Men are equal. Second, I'm old enough to remember, too, when the idea of separating, another word for it would be segregating, separating or segregating people by color was inimical, a badge of slavery, and heritable from Jim Crow. A channel dedicated, quote, to the black viewer, close quote. Where's the channel from Fox dedicated to the Jewish viewer, or Hispanic viewer, or Asian viewer? There are, after all, more Hispanics than African Americans in this country. Shouldn't Fox have a Hispanic channel? Or is the point that the more of a minority you are, the more deserving of your own channel you are? Well, then where's the Fox Jewish or Asian channel? Or the Fox Jewish Asian channel? Jews and Asians together, after all, are a smaller portion of the population than African Americans are in America. Then, of course, there's the whole notion of separate but equal, separating and dividing us by race, also known as segregation. I thought the Plessy v. Ferguson case was to be condemned. I thought thought of civil rights as Justice John Marshall Harlan did when he dissented in the Plessy-Ferguson case, the case that stood for separate but equal, especially when Harlan wrote this, quote, "There is no caste here. Our Constitution is colorblind, and neither knows nor tolerates classes amongst our citizens," close quote. I thought we agreed with Thurgood Marshall when he wrote in his brief in Brown versus Board of Education, quote, "Distinctions by race are so evil, so arbitrary and invidious, that a state bound to defend the equal protection of the laws must not invoke them in any public sphere," close quote. But here comes Fox News, dividing us by race. And it's based on a farcical conceit, which gets me to another part of that Fox motto, the motto that says, "Our voice, our truth." Let's talk about the first part. Our voice? Do we really think all black people, or for that matter, all Hispanic people, or all Jewish people, or all Asian people have one voice? What in the name of the wild, wild world of sports does Louis Farrakhan have in common with Larry Elder? For that matter, what in the world does Maxine Waters or James Clyburn or Michelle Obama have in common with Larry Elder or Walter Williams or Candace Owens or Shelby Steele or Clarence Thomas or Thomas Sowell? Let's be honest. I have more in common with Larry Elder and Walter Williams and Candace Owens and Shelby Steele and Clarence Thomas and Thomas Sowell than I do with Jerry Nadler or Adam Schiff or Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi. Why? Because we all have souls, brains, reason. And at least since Nuremberg, we thought that that was what was important, not ethnicity. In fact, the idea that race or ethnicity determined thought, I thought was killed off at Nuremberg. The truth is, Farrakhan and David Duke may have more in common than I do with David Duke, though we're both white. I hate thinking like this, but it needs to be said, yet again. Race does not determine thought, soul, reason, brain, or anything. You think Jeffrey Epstein and I have anything at all in common? We do not. You think Tim Scott and Al Sharpton have anything in common? They do not. I have more in common with Tim Scott than I do with, Jimmy Kimmel. Just as Tim Scott has more in common with Dennis Prager than he does with Kamala Harris or Cory Booker. Finally, if I may, Louis Farrakhan on the 4th of July? Or ever? On homosexuals, Louis Farrakhan says worse things than anyone the left wants to point out on the right. How about this? Quote, "We didn't have homosexuality in Africa until the white people gave it to us," close quote. That's Farrakhan. Or, quote, "Homosexuality began with the Jews," close quote. Also Farrakhan. Or, quote, "Homosexuality is wicked," close quote. That's also Farrakhan. On and on. He calls Jews vermin. He says, quote, "Jews are on a mission of evil," close quote, created by Satan. He says Jews leech on blacks. It's the worst stuff in the world. But because he's popular in some quarters and because he has some kind of racial veto, I guess, he gets a pass. He shouldn't. He's vile, and he's bigger than some of the most prominent racists who are supposedly claiming membership on the right. He has over 340,000 followers on Twitter, Farrakhan does. Over 6 times the number of followers that David Duke has. He's been hugged, greeted, feted, and praised by prominent Democrats, including Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. But whoa, we're told, Donald Trump is the racist. Good work with that. Fox, shame on you. Besides which, the 4th of July is to celebrate America. Why would you promote someone who hates it? Finally, separately, but not really, today we have a new Supreme Court decision on abortion, protecting it, 5-4. Chief Justice John Roberts among the 5. Let me reiterate now, I have more in common here again with Clarence Thomas in dissent today than John Roberts or Stephen Breyer or Ruth Ginsburg, who were in the majority. In fact, I agree with something another man once said, a black man. He wrote it in 1977. He wrote, quote, "There are those who argue that the right to privacy is of a higher order than the right to life. I do not share that view. I believe that life is not private, but rather is public and universal. If one accepts the position that life is private, and therefore you have the right to do with it as you please, one must also accept the conclusion of that logic. That was the premise of slavery. You could not protest the existence or treatment of slaves on the plantation because that was private, and therefore outside of your right to be concerned." He concluded, quote, "What happens to the mind of a person and the moral fabric of a nation that accepts the aborting of the life of a baby without a pang of conscience? What kind of person and what kind of society will we have years hence if life can be taken so casually? It is that question, the question of our attitude, our value system, and our mindset with regard to the nature and worth of life itself that is the central question confronting mankind. Failure to answer that question affirmatively may leave us with a hell right here on earth." Close quote. That man was Jesse Jackson. Affiliate me with those statements, made then. I still believe them. He no longer does. But he's changed. I've not. And it has nothing to do with skin color. I'm Seth Leibson. We'll be right back.